you will always stumble at the same spot if you keep allowing things to hold you back. Hello everyone. If this is your first time visiting my channel, I want to welcome you. My name is Wei-Jen. So I remember back to 2019 when the pandemic just happened. That was the time I just graduated from school. And I was very lucky that I got my first part-time job right after school. More than that, I was able to teach and work from home. That was very, quite nice. And that job at that time was being a Chinese Mandarin part-time online teacher. And then all of my students, most of them, they are adult. And so, it was very exciting for me. I was very energetic because I know Chinese Mandarin is my first language. And I also consider this skill or talent is a gift. It's a natural gift that I never ever want to take granted from it. And I want to use it to, serve others. So that was my intention. And so I started to learn how to be a teacher, but yet at the same time, I was a little bit hesitant and I felt a little bit low self-confidence and self-esteem because I had this thought of, I don't have a teaching certificate, so am I qualified to be a teacher, right? And I realized, through time, it's actually quite of an outdated mindset that I gave myself, an outdated meaning and an attitude and a perspective that I gave myself, and I chose to believe that at that moment. And of course, that is going to affect, how I perceive my relationship between me and my boss. And I would always put my boss on the pedestal and always say yes, 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 and yes by taking the extra work, the work that even, doesn't have anything to do with the teaching, right, for my boss. To the point I started to have some health issue. And at the same time, I wasn't able to make enough money to pay my basic, bills, to pay my rent. But at the same time, I was, finding joy, and I started to build a very good and then connected and intimate relationship with my students. So I was looking at that as something that I was very grateful for it. So, the more that I said yes to my boss at that time for the things that even has nothing to do with the teaching. For example, I remember my boss was asking me to do some marketing jobs because she knows that at the same time, I've been a performer in front of the camera for years, and I know how to talk to camera. I know how to record, edit, and even direct it myself, and then create some, content. So those are, considered as marketing and promote the school. And so she asked me to do that. And at the same time, she said that she wasn't going to pay me any cents. So as you can imagine, it's a lot of work. And besides that, I was being asked to hold a online events to attract more new students and to promote their language school. And I remember at first I said yes, but then after I said yes, the more requests that I received from my boss, such as she asked me to prepare a presentation for the event, and those preparation before the event, she wasn't going to give me any paid. And even when the event occurred, during the event, she was only willing to pay me $10 per hour while the event was happening. So to that point, I just feel that, I love the gift that I have within me. I love all the qualities that I have within me. To the point, I realized that I was started to be taking granted and taking advantage of, all the qualities and the gifts that I have within me. that has started to affect my health, my well-being, and my happiness. Even though I love my students, and I teach my students from a place of loving kind and passion and connection, right? But, because of my relationship with my boss and because of my shortcomings and my default, which I didn't know how to say no to my boss, right? I allowed myself to be that yes lady, to be that nice girl because she was my boss, because I decided I decided subconsciously and unconsciously by, to put her on the pedestal, to put her above me, right? And because I gave myself this voice that, oh, I didn't have the teaching certificate, so I must, obey and then say yes, as you can imagine, the voice goes long and long and long. And so when it started to affect my health, that my body just couldn't handle it anymore, and yet at the same time, it also impacted my basic needs, that it wasn't, being, fulfilled. And so I had to gather myself with the courage, to ask my boss kindly to raise my pay. So, I'm gonna be, honest with you guys. In the beginning, when I received this job offer, this part-time job offer, right? I was making $19 per hour. And at the same time, they were making $41 per hour. So the hour while I was teaching, right? I was making $19 per hour. And they weren't teaching during that hour, but they could just make $41 per hour, right? So I told myself, okay, I'm going to give myself, between 3 to 6 months just to learn how to teach, how to be a teacher, right? In a very professional way, by, taking the action, doing the things that I need to do to be a teacher. And then after, see how I feel after 6 months, then I asked for, the pay, the rate raising. And so which I did. And I remember I asked once, after 6 months passed by, I said, can you please raise my hourly rate to I think it was $20 or $21 per hour, so $2 more per hour. And keep in mind that at that time I was living in a major big city where, is the most expensive city in the whole United States, which is San Francisco. I was living in downtown San Francisco, by the way. They said, at first they said no. Okay. And then I said, okay, got it, no problem. And, 2 months or 3 months passed by, I asked them again, and they say, okay, we can, raise your hourly rate to $20 or $21. I can't remember because it's only $2 different. And so I was very happy and I feel okay, that makes me feel a little bit better, much better actually. And so to the point it was good enough for me to stay in that job position for another 6 months. But then 6 months passed by, I asked, the raise again because I noticed that they gave me more workloads than ever before. And also I noticed that my teaching skills was, much better than before. I was able to attract more students for them. And so they say no, okay? So 6 months passed by, I asked them again, they say no, right? So I told myself, okay, at least I ask, right? So asking something that I need, I shouldn't feel, shame about myself. And it is also something that I can do and I could do, with my own part and doing it with kindness. even though I got rejected, at least I did what I could do with my own control. And, I have no regret. And I didn't need to ended up being, guessing or walking on the eggshell, see how other people, their moods, looks like, or how they feel, about me, to determine whether or not I should ask. So when I got the rejection from my boss after a year, to ask, raising my hourly rate, she said no. I told myself, okay, it's fine, because I have been a part-time language teacher for a year only. So I'm going to give myself another, 3 to 4 months to be in this position. However, I do have my intention to stay in this position for another 3 to 4 months, which is I decide I was going to build my own online language studio in a very different, culture, different vibe and different environment. Not just, to please students, to attract students, to get more students, but also, as a teacher or as a worker, right? I also want to develop and cultivate that environment that teacher or worker, they're really satisfied and happy with their job and in their position. They are being treated, well. So with that intention, I continue to, build up my teaching skill and my speaking skill, and also how to design my material, how to personalize and tailor each individual, each student's their material to fill up their needs and their interest. Because each individual students, they're different and they're unique. And so I was also still carry that 100% tension to, serve my students. All right, so 3 to 4 months passed by. Oh, by the way, also, I was also using that 3 to 4 months while I was teaching. I was also using those months to start to learn how to establish my own online language studio. So with that being said, I was also, learning how to build my own business, how to design my own website and then the booking system, and then how do I want to receive the payment and what kind of rate do I want to receive from my students. That will make me feel authentic. That will also make me have a good sleep, that I don't feel, oh my God, I charge too high or I charge too low. That makes me feel angry or resentful, right? So those things that I had to learn before I opened up my language studio. And guess what? When the time was up, I told myself, okay, it's time to, stand up for myself and then love myself, respect myself by kindly thank my boss for everything that she has been teaching me. And it's time for me to stretch my comfort zone, to step outside of my comfort zone and to, level up my strength. So I told her that, I really appreciate everything that you taught me. However, I feel that I want to step outside of my comfort zone and then to, to move on with it to the different direction. So, with that being said, I am going to resign. And, it was a very interesting thing happened when I said that I'm going to quit. One thing that happened to me was that my boss, she became so willing to raise my hourly rate, to the point where she was willing to raise my hourly rate to $5 more or $10 more. I can't remember, but it was more than I expected or I could imagine. And Unfortunately, I told her that, I appreciate her offer and the generosity, but, I have my own plan. And so I'm going to continue with my own plan. And I hope that, she will find a better fit for this position. And so I just quit. And more miracles happened after I quit. Not only that I established my own online studio, which makes me feel, much better and much relieved and happier and more enlightened too, because I get to design the way how I want to teach my students, and also the inspiration that I want to inspire my student. The environment, the culture, the vibe that between me and my student is much more free, right? Less restriction. So one miracle that happened after I established my own studio is that I get clients found me on multiple or various resources such as linking. And I remember that I had this client found me through linking. That was the moment that also, changed my life, because I remember, when I established my own online studio, I felt much more free, and then I get to design, all the things that I just shared with you guys. But even more than that, I was able to make, $200 per hour with this particular client for the service. And that set me to be even freer and more and the more creativity and the more inspiration to design how do I want to, improve myself, and how do I want to contribute. What else can I contribute to my students, to this community that I just built it, right? What kind of values can I continue to add on other people to help them, right? To serve them. So that was all my mindset. And so I think back, right? Back to 2019, I was making $19 to $21 per hour, by, working for someone else. And, that in the end, I had started to have some health issues, and I started to have some issues also with my well-being and happiness too. And then yet at the same time, my boss was making, between $41 to $81 per hour while I was working for them. I was teaching under their school, right? To the point now, today, I am making $75 to $200 per hour. And so I feel that, from these experiences, I, did learn a lot. I learned, setting up my intention, my motivation, and my goal for the things that I am doing at that time. Even though there are so many things, little things, I can always find them to complain and to point my finger, blaming the external reality and the things, what goes wrong, right? I could also look at what I have at that moment and what can I do, right? So to give you an example, what I had at that moment is the job. That is the fact, right? And what I also had at that moment is that I had internet, I had Google, I had YouTube, and I also had students, their support, those relationship, emotionally, spiritually, their support, right? I had their friendship. I had my boss, her guidance. Those are the things that I had at that moment, right? And when it comes to what could I do, the same example at that moment, right? I could ask my boss for hourly rate, raising my hourly rate. That's something that I could control with my own part. And I also could set the boundary. Because what I remember, thinking back to that experience is that I was able to, in the end, set up the boundary with my boss by kindly said to her that, hey, my job in here is only, teaching classes, right? I I have other commitment. I have other areas of my life that I need to take care of. And I also get to take care of myself, my well-being, my health issues. So, as much as I really want to, help you for this online event or marketing or promoting event, right? I think, I didn't have that bandwidth at that moment, right? So I kindly just, set up the boundary, but being firm and clear at the same time to my boss. And of course, sometimes, people will push the boundary, again and again, repeatedly, right? And that is also something that I experienced with her at that time. And so it gave me an opportunity to exercise to reinforce my boundary and my standard. Because if I didn't put the oxygen mask on myself first, who is going to help me, right? So that is something that I learned. And, being my own boss and, facing students, or customer, being the front line, right? It does take courage. Regardless, how many years I've been a performer in front of the camera, talking to the camera or talking to strangers or being judged by audience or casting directors, right? As a human being, I do still have fear, right? I do still have doubt sometimes, asking myself, am I good enough? Can I do it, right? However, if I keep allowing to have those voices or the things that I lack, because I don't have enough money or I don't have enough, I don't have a big, huge network. I don't have training. I don't have teaching certificate, right? If I allow those voices to hold me back, to stop me doing the things that I really want to do, to serve others who I want to serve, and to even, being at service, right? Then I will always be in the same spot, and I will always find myself stumbling at the same place, year after year, month after month, week after week. And think about how many times we can waste. How many times do we have to waste and just to wait when we had enough money, when we had enough resource, right? When we get a teaching certificate, right? Then we could do XYZ, or then we will feel much happier. We will feel XYZ, right? So that is something that I want to share with you guys, is that you will always stumble at the same space, at the same spot, if you allow those things to hold you back. And how to navigate, in this external reality, because let's face it, the fact is there will be always things that we find it lack. We find that it's not good enough. We find that we just don't have at that moment, right? But instead of looking at the things that we don't have and we need, there are some things that we do need them, but we just don't. I think it's healthier and better, and it serves better to focus on what we have and what can we do with our own control. So that is something that I want to share with you. And, just talking about this experience, I never felt any regret about my decision. And also I never felt any regret about everything that I did during this, during this process, in this experience, whether it's dealing with my boss, or dealing with my health issue, or dealing with my students, right? I never felt any regret, any moment that I was in that experience. And that is something that I want to encourage you guys to find a way to look at what you have and what you can do. You can start to make a list of what you have in one column, and then make another list, another column, write down what you can do. And it can be something very small, something very trivial. For example, what you can do, maybe you can express your needs and your request and your desire to whoever you feel that you need to express to, and see what happened. I mean, the worst scenario is that you just get a no, you just get a rejection, right? But at least you know, and you don't need to spend time, you don't need to waste your energy to guess. And what you have, you can look at, maybe you have a phone, you have Google, you have internet, you have YouTube to do all those resources, right? So that is something I think, we should be grateful for it. And, instead of taking for granted. And so there's always a free resource outside there. You just have to consciously be mindful, seek for the outside resource. And then there are also many resources that are free. So don't underestimate the power of the education, the power of the knowledge, the power of the free resource. Because you never know where those, resource, knowledge and education, and also your little tiny actions, by asking or by expressing yourself authentically, kindly, truthfully, you never know what is that going to take you. So that is something that I want to share with you guys. If you find this video is very insightful and helpful to you, feel free to like my video, share this video, and even leave the comment and subscribe my channel, because I really want to build this community and then share my wisdom, my insight and experience and strength and hope with you guys. And so without your support, I don't know how this is going to unfold, but I trust you guys and I trust my higher power. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video. Have a fabulous day. Namaste.